everybody, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be reviewing testimony of Cynthia McPhee, Patricia Cross,
Robert Klaus,
William Curtin, Alicia Hertz, and Sandra Sharp. Cynthia McPhee was just 18 years old when she started working as Dr. Oziel's live-in babysitter for 5 years. Now, if you know anything about Dr. Oziel, you won't be surprised to hear that he cheated on his wife with none other than Cynthia McPhee. Yes, the nanny, the live-in babysitter. Her testimony was limited. Why? Well, because the prosecution didn't want her discrediting Dr. Oziel's character, because that would discredit his testimony or the validity of his testimony. But she did get to tell the court a few things, and let's just say she didn't hold back. She outright stated that she believes Dr. Oziel is a completely dishonest man and that she does not like him. Her exact words were, "I believe Dr. Oziel does not know the difference between a truth and a lie." Prosecution brought out the fact that Miss Cynthia here was actually arrested for grand theft auto, for stealing luggage, and for breaking a window, and this was actually all of the Oziel's possessions and property. Apparently there was some type of fight that took place. We don't get much information on what exactly took place and why it happened. Upon leaving from working with the Oziel family, she took his car, took his luggage, and broke a window apparently. But this did not stop Dr. Oziel from contacting Cynthia years later to brag to her about being a media star in the Menendez trial. He also boasted about being on the 1990s tabloid TV show Hard Copy because, of course, Dr. Oziel loves this attention. I don't know what he thought he was going to be getting from Cynthia at this point. Maybe more of her attention. I don't know, but we already know Dr. Oziel loves the ladies' attention. The next one on the stand is Robert Klaus. Robert Klaus was one of Lyle's tennis coaches. He recalled a conversation with Jose at their home in Calabasas, and Jose led him, Robert, into a private room, and then Kitty followed them in. And what was discussed in that room led to a drastic change in contract between coaching Lyle.
The specific words that
Your Honor, I'd like him to use the specific
first,
words.
Give us the gist.
Okay. He says, "Don't fuck with my son's future." Is that fucking perfectly clear?
And did he go into any detail about what that meant in terms of his future, what he was or wasn't to do?
Yes.
And what was that?
Tennis was just, I was babysitting now. As a babysitter for his tennis, he was going to go to Princeton. School starts and that's it.
And did he want you to not say particular things or not guide him in particular directions?
Well, at that point, I knew that it was changing. The whole idea was changing from tennis to he was going to school and I was going to be eventually terminated.
Now, the way that this discussion took place, was this a lighthearted discussion? Was he joking around?
No, his eyes were on me and I was on his eyes, and it was intimidating.
And after he said this, did you do anything? Did you look around or anything?
I did look at Kitty.
Why?
I was looking for some kind of a support or some kind of a help.
Okay.
And there was nothing. And that's when I started to say something, and he put his hand up, and that was it. I stopped.
How old were you at the time?
I was about 35.
Now, when he put his hand up, why didn't you just speak your piece?
I knew that was the end of the conversation.
But why wouldn't you just go ahead and explain what your views were?
I just felt that was it. No more to be said. Dismissed.
And after this, Robert spoke directly to Lyle about what Jose, his father, had told him back in California during a tennis match. I'll just play a video clip so you can hear it for yourself.
I felt threatened from Jose's threat that with my son, and is it perfectly clear? And my emotions were then I felt I was never going to coach him again. And now I'm getting him to come to Florida for a tournament. And I thought, I can't coach the way I'd like to because I felt threatened. But he's now, I'm sorry. So I felt very threatened by this. And I knew I had to say something to Lyle because I didn't know what was going to happen. I have no idea what would happen to me or him.
Were you afraid for your safety?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you afraid for his safety?
Yes.
So the next one on the stand was Patricia Cross. And Patricia Cross was Lyle's sixth grade teacher at Princeton Day School. And she had a parent-teacher conference scheduled with Jose and Kitty one evening. I'll just play a clip. So let's check out a couple
Parents
clips.
come in for a conference, and I had a date. I suppose the date isn't exactly the right word. An appointment with Mr. and Mrs. Menendez. I'd been working at school all day, and they were late. The appointment, I think, was somewhere like 10:30 in the evening. They came in rather. I was leaving the building. As I remember, and they came in and accosted me. That would be a good word to use, I think.
What hours were set aside for the parent-teacher conference
All right.
that evening?
As I remember, somewhere probably between, say, 7:30 and 10:30 in the evening, after a full day's teaching.
And had you been seeing other parents that evening?
Yes, I had.
And so you taught all day, and
Yes.
then you had to meet with parents of the...
Right, and Mr. and
Students.
Mrs. Menendez had the last appointment, and they were late, so I presumed they were not coming, and then they arrived, and as I was saying, they accosted me.
All right.
Where do you
And-
think you're going, kind of thing.
And where did they accost you? Were you in the classroom?
Outside the school.
So you actually were leaving
Yes.
the building,
Yes.
and were you heading for your car? Or for...
Yes, I was heading for my car.
And at that point, they accosted you?
Yes.
And what happened right after they accosted you? Was there a conversation?
We then went back into the building, into the dining room where the conferences were taking place, and I mean, I didn't feel as if I had a whole lot of choice. I don't quite know whether I was intimidated, but I certainly had never been spoken to in all my years of teaching in the way that Mr. Menendez spoke to me. I felt I was a professional. I am a professional. I didn't think I should be treated that way.
Mr. Menendez's tone of voice when he accosted you?
Belligerent, demanding
And what was he demanding?
that I give him the conference that was his due, whatever the time.
And what was Mrs. Menendez's participation at that point?
Minimal,
Was she more or less in the background?
yes.
And did Mr. Menendez prevail upon you to return to the classroom
Of course.
at that point? And did you in fact sit down with him at that point and have a discussion? Menendez's belligerent behavior and the way you wrote that report?
Yes, yes.
How were you influenced?
I decided to back off and not to be as quite as tough as I might otherwise have been, but I decided I wasn't going to engage in any more confrontations or communication to avoid Mr. and Mrs. Menendez as much as I could, and that was a way of dealing with the problem.
Now, in your school, did the teachers talk about the parents and the students that they were teaching?
They were not supposed to, but of course they did.
And was it well known in your community of teachers that the Menendez parents were problem parents?
Yes.
Objection, excuse me, move to strike as being improper,
Reputation evidence.
352.
Well, is that the word that was used, problem parents?
Yes, we do talk about problem
Okay,
parents.
objection overruled, the answer will stand.
And were you scheduled to teach Lyle Menendez again in the 8th grade?
Yes, I was.
Did something happen to prevent you from teaching him?
Yes, it did.
What happened?
Lyle appeared on my class roster, and then I was called into the head's office, who said, the Menendez parents have requested for you not to teach Lyle in 8th grade because there was a personality conflict.
And so you never
Presumably I don't know whether it was between me and Lyle or between me and, in their perception, between me and Lyle.
And so you didn't teach him in the
I was
8th grade.
delighted not to.
Thank you very much.
Really striking is just how many people describe the same type of interactions with Jose. Time and time again, witnesses say he was aggressive, intimidating, and impossible to stand up to. If adults felt that way, how could a child ever stand a chance with that man? Next one on the stand was William Curtin. Now, William Curtin was another one of Lyle's tennis coaches and had similar experiences as the other coaches who testified. He recalled a time when Jose stormed onto the court and started yelling at Lyle's 10-year-old opponent. So obviously Lyle was about 10 at this point, but Mr. Menendez went onto the court and started yelling at this 10-year-old. Mr. Curtin said he was pushy and rude and constantly trying to control Lyle's training. And even though, as William put it, Jose had no real knowledge of tennis coaching, this was a pattern. Every single coach who took the stand said the same thing. Jose and Kitty never encouraged or praised their kids. Win, lose, or draw. There was never any kind word to the children. Instead, Jose would take Lyle right back onto the court after a match and drill him relentlessly. It wasn't about making him better. It was about control. And that's plain cruelty and abuse. Next on the stand is Alicia Hertz. Alicia Hertz was both a neighbor and a teacher for Lyle. She was friendly with the Menendez family, but she learned early on that confronting Jose and Kitty was pointless. The one time she tried to bring up a concern to them directly, it didn't go well. And after that, she just actually went through the administration instead to have them address these, like, whatever concerns she had. Even though she was their friend and their neighbor, like, this is the path she chose because of that. And she described Jose and Kitty as people who ruled with intimidation. Jose's sense of humor, well, it was all about mocking others, especially those who were vulnerable, like women or men in lower positions at their jobs. He didn't just want power. He wanted people to feel small. That is how he felt his control, by belittling people and intimidating them and suppressing them, keeping them down. Because as long as you keep them down and embarrassed and everything else, they aren't going to challenge you. And that's what he did time and time again. The last one we're going to talk about today is Sandra Sharp. And she was Lyle and Eric's Spanish teacher in the 9th grade. She described Jose in a video clip, so I will just play that video clip.
How would you describe Jose Menendez based on your contacts with him at these conferences?
Belligerent, manipulative, trying very hard to be powerful and in control, rude, nasty.
In what ways was he manipulative? Do you have any specific instances in mind?
Well, he was never satisfied with Lyle's grades. He didn't come to Eric's conference.
He even blamed Sandra, the teacher, for Lyle's struggles, saying she must be a bad teacher because Lyle had Cuban genetics and should be able to speak Spanish fluently. So it's clearly her problem.
And obviously, I was a terrible teacher because Lyle wasn't speaking fluent Spanish, because obviously Lyle had a Cuban gene.
So he indicated, expressed some belief that because Lyle was Cuban, he should be able to speak Spanish.
Absolutely.
The insanity of that thought. I've dealt with that kind of insane thinking all my life. I'm Spanish. My family line is from Spain, and people often see this dark skin and think I speak Spanish automatically, and I don't. It doesn't matter how much genetics you have. You don't just have the language. You don't just learn the language without it being taught to you. And of course, we weren't taught it because my parents' generation actually used to get hit in school if they spoke Spanish. So they made it a point not to teach us Spanish. I actually always struggled in Spanish, but I made it through. Then there was Kitty, and Sandra said every time she saw her, Kitty smelled like alcohol. And that wraps up the witness testimony. A lot of this testimony is very, I guess you could say, compounding. It's kind of repetitive with the witnesses they're putting on the stand. They all tend to say the same thing, which, gives validity to everybody's testimony and what their experience was, because this was everybody's experience with the Menendez parents. And hearing all these stories together really paint a picture. Like the same themes come up over and over again: control, intimidation, neglect. Like, it makes you think about like what it was really like growing up in that household. A horror movie. That's what I would describe it as. It was a living horror movie. I don't know. What do you guys think? Does this change the way you see the Menendez case? Drop your thoughts in the comments and make sure you hit the bell icon so you're notified as soon as I upload these videos. Talk to you later.